My husband's ex told the kids to treat me like a stranger, so I did the same, and they finally noticed what that meant. The text came through on a Tuesday afternoon while I was working in my home office. My stepdaughter Hazel, 14, had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs in the bathroom. I'd gone to grab coffee and saw the screen light up. The preview showed enough. Mom says we don't have to pretend anymore. Just be polite like she's dad's roommate. I stood there holding my coffee mug, reading those words over and over. Each time felt like a small knife twisting. I'd been in their lives for 3 years, married to their dad Trevor for 2. In that time, I'd learned everything about these kids. I knew that Hazel needed her backpack placed by the front door the night before school, or she'd have a complete meltdown in the morning. That Owen, 11, only ate sandwiches cut diagonally, never straight across, because the diagonal cuts made them taste better somehow. That both kids needed their permission slips signed exactly 24 hours in advance, because their mom would inevitably forget until the morning they were due, creating absolute chaos. I knew that Hazel's anxiety spiked before every single math test, and she needed someone to quiz her repeatedly, using the same voice, the same patience, until the numbers finally clicked in her brain. That Owen had recurring nightmares about getting lost in crowded places and needed someone to check that all the doors and windows were locked before he could fall asleep. That Hazel secretly still slept with the stuffed elephant her grandmother had given her before she died, even though she'd never admit it to her friends. That Owen practiced his spelling words better when someone made them into a song. I knew which teammates' parents could be relied on for carpools, which teachers responded better to emails versus phone calls, which homework strategies worked and which ones led to tears. I knew the name of Hazel's first crush, the one she'd never told her dad about. I knew that Owen was being quietly bullied by a kid in his class, but was too ashamed to tell anyone. I knew all of this because I'd paid attention, because I'd shown up, because I'd cared. Their biological mom, Vanessa, had been poisoning them against me slowly since the day Trevor and I started dating. Little comments dropped casually into conversations. How I was probably temporary. How real families don't include replacement. How their dad would eventually come to his senses and realize what he'd lost. She'd skip her weekends with them, then tell the kids I'd probably convinced their dad she shouldn't come around as much. She bought them new phones specifically to text them during our family dinners, asking what I was feeding them, if I was being nice to them, reminding them constantly that she was their real mother and I was just someone passing through. The phones were presented as gifts, generous presents from a loving mother. Really, they were surveillance devices, tiny screens that let her insert herself into every moment of our lives together. I'd tried everything imaginable to make this work. Family therapy sessions where the kids sat with crossed arms, barely speaking, clearly having been coached by their mother about what not to say. Long, exhausting conversations with Trevor about setting boundaries with his ex, most of which ended with him saying he couldn't control what she did on her time. Patient, age-appropriate discussions with the kids about blended families and how love expands rather than divides. How caring about me didn't mean betraying their mother. Nothing worked. Because how do you compete with biology? How do you fight against someone who has the ultimate trump card, who can say I'm your real mother and have those words carry the weight of blood and birth? When I saw that text Tuesday afternoon, something fundamental inside me just broke. Not dramatically, not with anger or tears, just a quiet snapping, like a bridge cable giving way after years of strain. Fine. I'd be the stranger they wanted. Wednesday morning started like every other morning. My alarm went off at 5:30. I made coffee, checked my work emails, started thinking about what I'd need to accomplish that day. Trevor left at 5 for a project site in Springfield, which meant he'd be gone for at least 12 hours. Hazel came downstairs at 6:15 in her volleyball uniform, hair still wet from her shower, backpack slung over one shoulder. She had that focused look she got before tournaments, already mentally preparing. Can you drive me early today? I need to be there by 6:45 for the tournament. Coach said if we're late, we don't play in the first rotation. I looked up from my laptop. You'll need to ask your dad about rides. She blinked at me, confused. Dad's not here. He left at 5 for that Springfield project, remember? Then I guess you'll need to figure out alternative transportation. She stood there in the kitchen doorway, completely still, like her brain was trying to process a language she didn't speak. What? You're seriously not taking me? I'm just a stranger. Your dad's roommate, according to your mom. Strangers don't rearrange their schedules for other people's kids. Her face cycled through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, because this wasn't how I behaved. Realization, as she understood I'd seen the text. Anger, because how dare I bring that up. Panic, because the tournament started in half an hour. Are you kidding me right now? This is insane. Not even a little bit. Not kidding at all. For 3 years, I'd been her backup for absolutely everything. Every forgotten assignment that needed to be retrieved from school because she'd left it in her locker. Every ride to practice or games when Trevor was working late or out of town. Every 11 p.m. emotional crisis about boys or friend drama or feeling overwhelmed by expectations. Every early morning emergency when plans changed and schedules shifted. I'd learned the schedules of all her teammates' parents, so I knew who could carpool in a pinch. I'd become the team mom by default, bringing orange slices and water bottles and organizing the end-of-season parties. This is insane. You're being petty. I'm being exactly what your mother suggested. Politely distant. She grabbed her phone and called Vanessa. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Called Trevor, who was already on the highway, 2 hours away and unable to turn back even if he wanted to. She tried 3 different teammates' parents. 1 didn't answer. 2 couldn't help on such short notice. apologized profusely, asked if everything was okay at home. She ended up missing the entire tournament. Her team lost without their starting setter. Her coach called Trevor during his lunch break, disappointed and concerned, asking what had happened to our family's usual reliability. Hazel spent the day in her room, crying and rage texting her mother about how I'd ruined everything, how I was a horrible person, how she'd been right all along about me. I felt terrible listening to her cry, but I also felt something else underneath the guilt. Relief, maybe. Or the grim satisfaction of finally letting them experience the natural consequences of their choices. Owen's science fair project was due Friday morning, first period. For 2 solid weeks, his half-constructed volcano had been sitting on our dining room table, gathering dust and judgment. Typically, I would have helped him every single evening, reminded him gently about the timeline, made sure he had all the supplies he needed, asked him questions about his hypothesis, taken him to the craft store when he realized he'd forgotten something essential. The night before it was due, I would have stayed up until midnight, or later, helping him paint the volcano the right colors, ensuring his baking soda to vinegar ratio was correct for a good eruption, printing his labels on nice cardstock instead of regular paper, helping him write his display board in neat handwriting that the teacher could actually read. Thursday evening at 8:30, with the project still barely started, with the volcano looking like a sad lump of newspaper and flour paste, Owen dragged himself downstairs to the kitchen where I was reading a novel at the table. "Can you help me finish my volcano? It's due tomorrow, first period, and I haven't even painted it yet." I didn't look up from my book. That sounds like something a parent should help with, but you always help me with projects. You helped me with my diorama and my solar system and my biography poster. I always helped Owen, my stepson, but according to your mother's instructions, I'm just Dad's roommate. Roommates don't do school projects. That's not appropriate. His lower lip started trembling, that telltale sign that tears were coming. But Dad's on a conference call with the Japan office. He said it's going to be another 2 hours at least. Then you should have managed your time better. Asked one of your actual parents for help earlier in the week. 2 weeks is plenty of time. I'll get a 0. Mrs. Patterson doesn't accept late work ever. Not even with a doctor's note. That's unfortunate. Maybe next time you'll plan ahead. Real tears started rolling down his cheeks now, dripping onto his shirt. The same tears that had manipulated me for 3 years into fixing every problem, solving every crisis, being the safety net for poor planning and last-minute panic. Please. I'm sorry about the text. I'm sorry about what Mom said. I'm not doing this because I'm angry, Owen. I'm doing this because your mother is right. I'm not your parent. Your parents should be handling your education and your projects. I've been overstepping. This is better for everyone. He cried harder, his whole body shaking with it. Eventually, he dragged the pathetic, half-finished volcano back upstairs to his room. I could hear him trying to work on it. Lots of frustrated sounds. Something crashed, probably paint. More crying. The sound of tape being ripped. More frustrated noises. Trevor finally finished his conference call around 11 p.m. and went upstairs to check on Owen. By then, it was far too late. The volcano looked like a sad, lumpy pile of papier-mâché with uneven paint drips running down the sides. Owen had printed his labels on regular paper in a font that was way too small to read from any distance. The display board was covered in scribbled-out mistakes. The whole thing was a disaster. I heard Trevor through the ceiling trying to salvage it, his patient dad voice explaining that they'd do their best. Owen crying that it wasn't good enough, that everyone else would have better projects, that his teacher was going to be so disappointed. Friday afternoon, Owen came home from school with red eyes and a graded rubric. 35%. Failed the entire assignment. His teacher had written a note at the bottom. "This is well below your normal standard, Owen. What happened? You usually have such wonderful projects." When Vanessa found out later that evening, she sent Trevor a furious string of texts. I wasn't supposed to see them, but he showed me, his jaw tight with anger. The texts called me vindictive, said I was sabotaging the kids' education out of spite, said I was supposed to be helping them, not punishing them for having a real mother who actually cared about their well-being. Said Trevor needed to get his wife under control before she did permanent damage. Trevor was confused. He couldn't understand why I hadn't just helped Owen like I normally did, why I'd let an 11-year-old fail when I could have prevented it with just a few hours of my time. That's when I showed him the text from Vanessa to Hazel. He read it 3 times, his expression darkening with each pass. "She told them to treat you like a stranger? Like a roommate?" Those were the specific words. "Yes. And you decided to just stop helping them completely? Just like that?" I decided to respect their mother's wishes. She's right, you know. I have been overstepping for years. They have 2 biological parents. Those parents should be handling their needs. I'm not their mother. I never will be. So I'm correcting my behavior. That's not what I want. That's not what we agreed on when we got married. What we agreed on doesn't matter if the kids don't want me in that role. Vanessa is their mother. If she thinks my involvement is inappropriate, then I need to step back. It's actually better this way. Clearer boundaries, less confusion. He didn't agree that it was better, but he couldn't exactly argue with the logic. His ex-wife had set a boundary. I was respecting it. That should have been a good thing, right? The following week brought Hazel's 15th birthday. In previous years, I'd spent literal weeks planning. I'd figure out her current favorite dinner, which changed annually as her tastes evolved. I'd make her cake from scratch, from recipes I'd perfected, because she had specific preferences about frosting to cake ratios and texture and flavor combinations that store-bought cakes never got right. I'd hunt for gifts she'd actually love, because I paid attention to every single offhand comment she made about things she wanted or needed or admired. Last year, she'd mentioned exactly once, in passing, that she thought the handmade jewelry her friend wore was pretty. I'd tracked down the artist's Etsy shop, commissioned a custom necklace in Hazel's favorite colors, had it wrapped professionally. She'd cried happy tears when she opened it and wore it every single day for 6 months straight. This year, I did absolutely nothing. Day of her birthday, she came home from school and waited by the front door like she always did on special occasions. She stood there with her backpack, looking toward the kitchen expectantly. I was in the living room reading. "Aren't we going to go get my cake? From that bakery downtown that does the raspberry filling I like?" I turned a page. "I'm sure your mom will handle that. Mom's working late. She texted earlier that you take care of the birthday stuff like you always do." "Did she?" I still didn't look up from my book. "Well, I'm just your dad's wife. Birthday celebrations are a parent job. I'm certain your mother will figure something out." Confusion spread across her face slowly, like ink in water. "But you always do my birthday. You're the one who makes it special. I used to overstep my role. I'm correcting that now. Your parents should be handling milestone celebrations." This is because of that stupid text, isn't it? Because of what Mom said? Finally, I looked at her directly. "This is because your mother is absolutely right. I'm not your parent. I never will be. Biology matters. Her role matters. Mine doesn't. So from now on, your actual parents will handle parent responsibilities." Her birthday dinner that night was lukewarm pizza that Trevor grabbed on his way home from work because he'd forgotten it was her birthday until 4 p.m. No special meal. No homemade cake with the raspberry filling, no carefully chosen gifts wrapped in the specific paper she loved. Just a card with $100 cash inside that Vanessa dropped off 3 days late because she'd forgotten until Hazel reminded her. I heard Hazel crying in her room that night around 10. The sound was muffled, like she had her face buried in her pillow, trying not to be heard. Every single instinct I had screamed at me to go to her, to knock on her door, to sit on her bed and stroke her hair and tell her I was sorry, to explain that I was hurt, but I still loved her, to fix this like I'd fixed everything else for 3 years. But I stayed in my bedroom with the door closed, reading my book, forcing myself not to move. If I went to her now, nothing would change. She'd learn that I'd always come running, even when I'd been pushed away. She'd learn that my boundaries meant nothing. Trevor came into our bedroom around 11. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face with both hands in that way he did when he was stressed. "You're really doing this." "I am. She's devastated in there. She'll recover. Plenty of kids have birthdays without elaborate celebrations. That's not the point, and you know it. The point is that her mother set a boundary, and I'm respecting it." He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to fix this. There's nothing to fix. This is how it should have been from the beginning. You have 2 kids. You and Vanessa are their parents. I'm your wife. Those are separate roles that shouldn't have gotten confused." By week 3, things had deteriorated significantly throughout the entire household. Owen came down with a stomach bug on a Wednesday. Woke up at 3 a.m. vomiting. Normally, I would have been the one to handle it automatically. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, so my schedule was completely flexible. Trevor worked in commercial construction management with strict site visit schedules and client meetings that couldn't easily be rescheduled. For 3 years, I'd been the default sick day parent without question. But when Owen started throwing up at 3 a.m., I woke Trevor instead of getting up myself. "Owen's sick. Sounds like he's vomiting. You'll need to call in tomorrow." Trevor, barely conscious, said, "Can't you just handle it? You're already home. I have that critical client meeting at 8. "I'm not his parent. This is your responsibility. Call your boss." He missed the critical client meeting. The client was understanding, but barely. Told Trevor's supervisor that maybe they needed someone more reliable. Trevor spent the entire day exhausted, cleaning up vomit every hour, trying to keep Owen hydrated with small sips of water, falling behind on urgent emails and phone calls. Meanwhile, I worked in my office with the door closed, pretending I couldn't hear Owen calling for me every hour. "Why won't she come?" I heard Owen ask his dad at one point through the wall. The sound made my chest hurt. "She's working, buddy, but she always takes care of me when I'm sick. She makes that ginger tea that settles my stomach, and she plays those audiobooks with the funny voices that make me forget I feel bad." I know. Things are just different right now. Because of what Mom said? Because of that text? Trevor didn't answer that question. Just changed the subject to whether Owen could keep down some crackers. Hazel's math anxiety spiraled completely out of control. She had a major test scheduled for Thursday on quadratic equations. Usually, I'd spend Tuesday and Wednesday evenings quizzing her for hours, walking her through practice problems using the specific techniques and explanations that helped her understand, sitting with her until her hands stopped shaking and her breathing evened out. This time, when she asked for help Tuesday evening, I told her to watch Khan Academy videos, but I don't understand how they explain it. You explain it better. You make it make sense. Your parents can help you. Or they can hire a tutor if needed. She failed the test. Got a 58, her first failing grade in math ever, after maintaining a solid B+ average with my help. She came home Thursday afternoon sobbing, threw her backpack across the kitchen so hard it hit the wall, and screamed that she hated me, that I was cruel and vindictive and she wished I'd never married her dad. Good. It's easier to hate a stranger than someone you depend on. She ran upstairs and slammed her door so hard the pictures in the hallway rattled. That night, I overheard Trevor on the phone with Vanessa through our bedroom wall. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "You need to undo this. Call the kids right now and tell them you were wrong, that you didn't mean it. Vanessa's voice came through the speaker, sharp and defensive. I wasn't wrong. She's not their mother. She needs to remember her place. Her place? Her place has been keeping our kids' lives running smoothly for 3 years, while you skip weekends and forget pickups and can't be bothered to show up. Don't you dare blame me for having to work. I'm supporting myself without any help from anyone. I have to work too. So does she. But somehow she made it work for 3 years. She learned everything about them, their schedules, their fears, their favorite foods, their triggers, how to calm them down, what makes them feel safe. She's been more present than you have. Silence on the other end for several seconds. Then, you chose her over your own children. I chose someone who actually shows up, who doesn't use our kids as weapons, who doesn't send manipulative texts designed to hurt someone who's been nothing but good to them. She hung up on him. Week 4 was when things crossed from difficult into actually dangerous. Hazel had a severe allergic reaction to something at lunch on Monday. Turned out one of her friends had brought in homemade cookies that weren't properly labeled. Within 20 minutes of eating one, Hazel's throat started swelling. The school nurse called me first because I was listed as the primary emergency contact. For 3 years, I'd been the one who handled all medical emergencies because I was available immediately and close to the school. When my phone rang and I saw the school's number, my stomach dropped. But I didn't answer. They called Trevor next. He was 45 minutes away at a major job site. Couldn't leave immediately, even in an emergency. They called Vanessa. She was in court, phone turned off, completely unreachable. They called me again. I let it ring through to voicemail. The school nurse's voice on the message was stressed and urgent. This is Carol from Hillside Middle School. Hazel's having an allergic reaction. We've administered her EpiPen, but we need a parent here immediately to make medical decisions and possibly transport to the ER. She's stable but scared and asking for you specifically. Please call back as soon as you get this. I sat at my desk, staring at my phone, hands physically shaking. This was too far. This was actual medical danger. This was a child who needed help, whose throat might be swelling shut, who was frightened and calling for me. But if I went running every single time there was a crisis, nothing would ever change. They'd learn that I was a completely reliable backup, and Vanessa would keep pulling this manipulative garbage. They needed to understand that actions have real consequences, that you can't systematically push someone away and still expect them to catch you every time you fall. I waited 20 minutes, long enough for Trevor to get the message and start driving back, long enough for Vanessa to eventually come out of court and see the 47 missed calls on her phone, long enough for Hazel to experience what it genuinely felt like when the person she'd depended on for years didn't show up. Then I drove to the school. When I walked into the nurse's office, Hazel was sitting on the cot, face splotchy and swollen from the reaction, eyes red from crying and the allergic response both. The moment she saw me, her entire face crumpled. You didn't come. They called you first and you didn't come. Your dad is on his way. Should be here in about 10 minutes. I asked for you. They said they called you twice and you didn't answer. The nurse looked at me with obvious confusion and a bit of judgment in her eyes. She knew me. She'd seen me there for every scraped knee, every fever, every upset stomach, every accident for 3 solid years. She'd watched me comfort Hazel through panic attacks and hold ice packs on Owen's baseball injuries and sit through concussion protocols. I'm just step-parent. Her actual parents should handle medical emergencies. I stayed in the office, silent, not comforting Hazel, not holding her hand, not doing any of the things I would have done automatically before. Just waited in the uncomfortable plastic chair until Trevor burst through the door 15 minutes later, frantic and terrified. Is she okay? What happened? Why didn't you come immediately when they called? I looked at him evenly. You're her father. Medical emergencies are a parent responsibility. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he turned all his attention to Hazel, checking her over, talking to the nurse about protocols and next steps, and whether they needed to go to the ER for observation. I left while they were still discussing it. That evening, Trevor and I had our worst fight yet. He didn't even wait until the kids were asleep, just followed me into our bedroom and closed the door hard. She could have died. Do you understand that? Her throat could have closed completely. She had her EpiPen. The nurse was there. She was fine. She was terrified. She was crying for you and you just didn't show up. You made a conscious choice to let a child suffer. Her mother told her I was a stranger. Strangers don't leave work for other people's medical emergencies. Stop saying that. Stop using that text as an excuse to punish children for their mother's behavior. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm establishing appropriate boundaries that should have existed from the beginning. Boundaries? You're traumatizing them. You're teaching them that love is conditional and can be withdrawn as punishment. They were already being traumatized by having someone in their life their mother told them to reject, by being forced to choose between caring about me and being loyal to her. I'm removing that confusion. Now their family structure is clear. You're their dad. Vanessa's their mom. I'm your wife. Separate roles. That's not how this family works. That's not what we built together. It's exactly how this family works when one parent is actively sabotaging the other, when one parent uses children as weapons, when one parent makes it impossible for anyone else to succeed. His face was red with anger. You're no better than she is right now. You're using them to hurt her. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. He grabbed his pillow and slept in the guest room that night, and the next 3 nights after that. By week 5, I'd systematically stopped doing anything and everything that could be considered even remotely parental in nature. No cooking family meals, I made dinner for Trevor and myself. The kids could make themselves sandwiches or cereal or order food with their mom's credit card if she'd given them one. Not my responsibility. No laundry, except my own. Their clothes piled up in their rooms until they ran out of clean uniforms and had to wear dirty ones or figure out the washing machine themselves. No driving anywhere except my own errands. If they needed to get somewhere, they could take the bus or bike or ask their actual parents. No helping with homework, projects, problems, or studying. They had teachers and parents for that. No attending school events, games, performances, or parent-teacher conferences. Those were for parents. No managing their schedules or activities or keeping track of what they needed to be where and when. No gift buying for their friends' birthdays, no signing permission slips, no packing lunches, no checking their backpacks, no reminding them about anything. The house fell into complete and total chaos. Owen missed soccer practice 3 times in 1 week because nobody drove him. He got benched for the next game as punishment. Came home crying about it, but I was working in my office with headphones on. Hazel ran out of clean volleyball uniforms and had to wear her dirty practice jersey to an actual game. Her teammates noticed and made comments. She came home humiliated, locked herself in her room. Both kids were surviving on cereal, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever fast food Trevor grabbed on his way home from work, which was usually around 8 p.m. Their grades were slipping across every subject. They were missing assignments left and right because nobody was helping them stay organized. They looked exhausted and disheveled and lost. And they were absolutely furious with me. Hazel stopped speaking to me entirely unless absolutely necessary. Would walk past me in the hallway like I was invisible. Would leave rooms when I entered them. Would eat her cereal standing at the counter rather than sit at the table if I was there. Owen tried a different tactic. Would look at me with these big, sad, manipulative eyes. Would sigh dramatically when I walked by. Would mention loudly to Trevor that he wished someone cared enough to help him. When that didn't work, he joined Hazel in the silent treatment. Meanwhile, Vanessa was getting increasingly frantic calls from the school about the kids' declining performance and appearance. Teachers were concerned. The counselor wanted a meeting. Vanessa blamed me for everything. Sent Trevor long, detailed texts about my cruelty and manipulation, threatened to take him back to court for custody modifications because I was creating an unsafe and neglectful environment for the children. Good, I told Trevor when he showed me the texts. Let her have full custody. Let her handle literally everything herself for once. See how long she lasts before she realizes how much work it actually is. You don't mean that. I absolutely do mean it. I'm tired. I've been trying for 3 years to love kids who've been told not to love me back. I'm done being the person who does all the work and gets none of the appreciation. I'm done being convenient. Week 6 brought the breaking point for everyone. It was a Friday. Trevor had left Wednesday for a 3-day industry conference 2 states away. Couldn't get out of it because he was presenting. Vanessa was supposed to take the kids for the weekend, but she canceled last minute Friday morning. Some work emergency that sounded completely made up when she explained it in her text. Something about a brief that had to be filed, and she was the only one who could do it. So the kids were stuck with me for 3 days straight. Neither of them spoke to me. They holed up in their rooms all Friday afternoon and evening. I worked in my office and left them completely alone. Didn't check on them. Didn't offer to make dinner. Didn't do anything. Friday night, they ordered pizza using Trevor's credit card that they'd memorized. Ate it in Owen's room while watching something on his laptop. Saturday morning, they made themselves breakfast. Cereal and toast from what I could hear. Made themselves lunch around noon. I worked through the morning and afternoon, completely ignoring them. Saturday afternoon around 2, Owen's phone lit up with a text. His best friend Dylan was having a last-minute birthday party at the trampoline park across town, starting in just over an hour at 3:30. The invitation said Dylan's mom could pick up a few kids, but not everyone. Some parents would need to drop off. Owen appeared in my office doorway around 2:15, shifting his weight nervously from foot to foot. Can you drive me to Dylan's party? It starts at 3:30. I didn't look up from my computer screen. No, please. Everyone from class is going. I can't miss Dylan's birthday. He's my best friend. Figure out another ride. There is no other ride. Dylan's mom can't pick me up. She already has too many kids in her car. Dad's at his conference. Mom's not answering her phone. That's unfortunate. His face started getting red. His breathing quickened. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so mean? I'm just following your mother's instructions. I'm treating you the way she suggested. I don't care what Mom said anymore. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want? Just please take me to the party. You don't mean that apology. You just want something from me right now? I do mean it. I'm really sorry. I miss when you were nice to me. I miss when you helped me with stuff and played games with me and made things fun. Something in his voice almost broke through my resolve. Almost made me cave. But I remembered that text message. The casual cruelty of it. The deliberate instruction to treat me like I didn't matter. Like I was nothing. I'm in the middle of work. Not available for driving today. He stared at me for another few seconds, then ran back upstairs. I heard his door slam. Heard him crying. Heard Hazel go into his room to comfort him. Their voices low through the wall. 20 minutes later, Hazel appeared in my office doorway. Her face was blotchy and red from crying too, though whether from her own tears or sympathy for her brother, I couldn't tell. He's up there sobbing because he's missing his best friend's birthday party. Does that make you happy? Is this what you wanted? I'm neutral about it? How can you be so cold? You used to actually care about us. You used to be nice. You used to be someone I could talk to. I used to overstep boundaries. I'm correcting that now. This isn't about boundaries. You're punishing us because your feelings got hurt. My feelings don't matter. What matters is respecting your mother's parental role. My mother is barely around. She works all the time and cancels on us constantly and forgets important stuff. Then maybe you should tell her that. I have told her that. She doesn't listen. She just keeps saying you're trying to replace her and that we need to stay loyal to our real family. And you believed her. Silence stretched between us. You believed her, I repeated. For 3 years, I showed up for you every single day. I learned everything about you. I adjusted my entire life around your needs. I loved you. And one text from her was all it took for you to decide I was the enemy. That's not fair. She's our mom. We have to listen to her. You're right. She's your mom. And I'm not. I never will be. So from now on, she can handle all the mom jobs. I'm finished trying to be something you don't actually want me to be. Hazel's face crumpled. I do want you to be that. I got confused. She made me feel guilty for liking you. You weren't confused. You made a choice. You chose to believe her. You chose to treat me like I don't matter. That's fine. But choices have consequences. Actions have consequences. You don't get to have it both ways. So you're going to treat us like this forever? You're just going to stop caring about us completely? I'm going to treat you exactly how your mother suggested. Politely distant. Like your dad's roommate who shares space with you but has no real role in your life. Even when we're sorry? Even when we realize we were wrong? Words are easy. Anyone can say sorry when they want something. You weren't sorry last week. You weren't sorry when I wasn't taking you places and helping with projects. You're only sorry now because your brother is missing something important and you're realizing how much you actually relied on me. She left my office. I heard her go back upstairs to Owen's room. Heard them talking in low voices. More crying. Around 6 that evening, my phone rang. Dylan's mother. Hi there. I'm calling about Owen. He was supposed to be at the party today, but he never showed up. Dylan's been so disappointed. They're best friends. Is everything all right? He's fine. Just couldn't make it today. Oh no. Dylan's been upset about it all afternoon. I would have been happy to pick Owen up if transportation was an issue. I could have fit one more in the car if someone had called. That's very kind of you, but it's all handled. Well, Dylan really wanted Owen there. They've been planning this for weeks. Do you think Owen might be able to come over tomorrow instead for a small celebration? Just the two of them? You'd have to discuss that with his father. He's at a conference until Sunday evening, but you can try his cell. Oh, okay then. I'll do that. I hope everything's all right with your family. After I hung up, I felt physically sick. Not because of what I'd done, but because I'd realized something important. The kids weren't the only casualties of Vanessa's poison. I was losing myself too, becoming cold and rigid and cruel in response to her manipulation, hurting children to make a point to their mother, turning into exactly the kind of person I'd never wanted to be. That evening, around 8, Hazel and Owen emerged from upstairs together. They looked nervous and sad and younger than their actual ages. They sat on the couch across from my reading chair, close together like they were supporting each other. We need to talk to you, Hazel said quietly. I closed my book and waited. Owen's voice was small and shaky. We talked to Mom today, told her everything that's been happening, all of it. And Hazel took over. She said we misunderstood her text, that she didn't mean for us to treat you badly. She just meant we didn't have to call you Mom if we didn't want to. That we could keep our relationship with her separate from our relationship with you. That's a very convenient reinterpretation after the fact. Hazel winced. I know. But she also said some other stuff. About how she's been struggling with you being in our lives. How it makes her feel like she's being replaced. How she's scared we'll love you more than her because you're around more and you do more stuff with us. So she decided to make absolutely sure you didn't love me at all. Yeah. Hazel's voice was barely audible. I think that's exactly what she did. We sat in silence for a long moment. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Could hear a car driving past outside. Could hear my own heartbeat. Owen spoke next, his words tumbling out fast like he'd rehearsed them. We've been really, really stupid. You've been taking care of us forever and we treated you like you didn't matter because Mom made us feel guilty for liking you. But you do matter. You matter a lot. You're not stupid. Your kid's stuck in an impossible situation that adults created. We don't want you to be distant anymore, Hazel said. We want things to go back to how they were before. I looked at both of them for a long moment, seeing the hope and fear mixed in their expressions. I can't do that. Their faces fell simultaneously, mirror images of disappointment. I can't go back to how things were before because how things were before wasn't sustainable or healthy. I was drowning. I was doing absolutely everything for you while your mother actively undermined me, and your dad stayed mostly oblivious. I was exhausted and unappreciated and treated like I was temporary, like I didn't really matter, like I could be dismissed whenever it was convenient. We appreciate you now, Owen said quickly. We really do. We see how much you were doing. Now you appreciate me. Now you see it. Because you've experienced what life looks like without me handling everything. But the second things get comfortable again, we'll end up right back where we started. Your mom will get jealous again. She'll say something that makes you feel guilty. You'll pull away from me, and I'll be left hurt and confused all over again. I can't do that cycle anymore. So what do we do? Hazel asked. How do we fix this? You talk to your mother, both of you, together. You tell her that you love her and appreciate her, but that you also care about me. You tell her that me being in your life doesn't erase her or replace her. You set boundaries with her about the kind of things she says about me and your home here, and you actually hold those boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. She's not going to like that. She doesn't have to like it. But if she genuinely loves you, she'll respect it. She'll put your needs ahead of her insecurities. And then what? Owen asked. After we talk to her, then we all go to family therapy. All 5 of us, if your mother will agree. And we figure out how to build something sustainable. Not me doing everything while everyone else coasts. Not me doing nothing while you all suffer. Something in the middle where everyone contributes and everyone's role is clear and everyone feels valued. What if mom won't come to therapy? Then we do it without her and figure out what this family looks like with healthy boundaries. But the invitation stays open for her. They both nodded slowly, processing everything. Can I ask you something? Hazel said after a minute. Sure. Do you still love us? After everything we did? After how we treated you? I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I never stopped loving you. I just stopped showing it in ways that were hurting me, and I'm not going to apologize for protecting myself. Love without boundaries isn't healthy. Love without reciprocity isn't sustainable. I had to step back before I started resenting you because that would have been worse for everyone. We're really, truly sorry, Owen said, fresh tears streaming down his face. For all of it. For believing mom. For treating you like you didn't matter. For taking advantage of how much you did for us. I know you are. I can see that you mean it now. Can we hug you? I hesitated for just a second, then nodded. They both rushed over and wrapped their arms around me from either side. I hugged them back, feeling 3 years of tension and hurt and love all pressing against my chest at once. I'm sorry I didn't take you to the party, I whispered to Owen. I'm sorry I let mom make me treat you bad, he whispered back through his tears. I'm sorry I failed my math test instead of asking you for help, Hazel added. I'm sorry I missed my tournament and blamed you. I'm sorry for all of it. We stayed like that for several minutes, just holding each other. When Trevor came home Sunday evening from his conference, exhausted and dragging his suitcase, he found the 3 of us in the kitchen making dinner together. Not because I'd taken over cooking duty again, but because we were all working together, all contributing. Owen was attempting to cut vegetables, doing it badly but trying his best. Hazel was watching garlic bread in the oven, had already burned the first batch. I was trying to save a pasta sauce that had gotten way too salty because I'd measured wrong. We were laughing at our mistakes and it was messy and chaotic and nothing like the smooth, efficient machine I'd been running for 3 years. Trevor stood in the doorway with his suitcase, completely confused. What's happening here? We're making dinner, Hazel said, grinning despite the smoke detector that had gone off twice. All of us together. We're really bad at it, Owen added cheerfully, holding up a carrot he'd cut into weird diagonal chunks. Trevor looked at me with questions in his eyes. We had some conversations this weekend. We're trying something different. Different how? Different like everyone actually participates? Different like I'm not the only one holding everything together. Different like we're building something sustainable instead of something dependent entirely on me. That night, after the kids went to bed, after we'd eaten our mediocre pasta and laughed about our terrible cooking skills, I told Trevor everything. The full extent of the conversations I'd had with Hazel and Owen, the plan going forward, the boundaries that needed to be established and maintained, the therapy that needed to happen, the ways things absolutely could not go back to how they were before. I can't be everything to everyone anymore, I said. I can't be the primary parent while Vanessa gets to swoop in and play fun mom when she feels like it, and also poison them against me. I can't carry this family alone while everyone else just benefits from my labor. You shouldn't have to carry it alone. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you from her. You should have, but you didn't. So now we need to build something better. The kids need to do more for themselves, need to learn actual life skills and responsibility. You need to take on more of the parenting duties, need to be present for their daily needs instead of just the fun stuff. Vanessa needs to be genuinely present when she has them, and stop with the manipulation and toxicity. And I need to be allowed to be a human being with limits instead of an endless well of service. What if Vanessa won't change? What if she keeps doing what she's been doing? Then the kids will see clearly who actually shows up consistently and who doesn't. They'll see who respects them enough to be honest and who manipulates them. They'll make their own choices about who they trust. But I can't control her. I can only control myself. The following Monday, we scheduled a family meeting with Vanessa. She didn't want to come, made excuses about work and scheduling conflicts. But Trevor made it absolutely clear it wasn't optional if she wanted to maintain her custody arrangement without court involvement. That got her attention. She arrived at our house at 6 p.m., arms crossed defensively, barely making eye contact with anyone, sat on the chair farthest from me like I was contagious. Hazel spoke first, her voice shaking but determined. Mom, we need to talk about the text you sent us. About treating her like Dad's roommate. Vanessa's expression was immediately defensive. I already explained that. You misunderstood what I meant. No, Hazel said more firmly than I'd ever heard her speak to her mother. I don't think we misunderstood. I think you told us to push her away because you were jealous. And it almost ruined everything. Vanessa's face flushed red. I'm your mother. I have a right to what? Owen interrupted, his voice stronger than usual. To make us feel guilty for caring about someone? To make us choose between you and her when we shouldn't have to choose at all? That's not what I was doing. That's exactly what you were doing, Trevor said firmly. And it stops right now. Today. You can't tell me how to parent my children. I can tell you that if you keep poisoning them against my wife, if you keep using them as weapons in whatever battle you think you're fighting, I will take you back to court. Not for more custody. For documented parental alienation with evidence. The room went completely silent. Vanessa looked at me directly for the first time since arriving, her expression mixing anger and something that might have been shame. You really turned them all against me. I didn't have to turn anyone against you, I said quietly. You did that yourself by prioritizing your insecurities over their well-being. She stood up abruptly, grabbed her purse from the floor. I'm not sitting here and being attacked by all of you. Mom, Hazel said urgently, please don't leave. Please just listen. Call me when you're all ready to apologize for being disrespectful. She walked out. We heard her car start in the driveway, heard her drive away. The four of us sat in the living room for several minutes, processing what had just happened. The kids looked devastated. Trevor looked resigned. I just felt tired. Well, Trevor said eventually, that went about as well as I expected it to go. She'll come around, Hazel said, but her voice was uncertain. She has to, right? Maybe. Or maybe she won't. Either way, we move forward. 3 weeks passed. Vanessa still hadn't called the kids, hadn't answered their calls to her. The silent treatment from their mother hurt them badly, but it also clarified things in a way words never could have. In those 3 weeks, things changed gradually in our household. The kids started doing their own laundry without being asked, started managing their homework independently, started figuring out their own transportation sometimes. Trevor started taking mornings off work when the kids needed something, started being more present for their daily struggles instead of just the big moments. I found a sustainable middle ground. I helped when they asked and when I had the capacity, but I also said no sometimes without guilt. I prioritized my own work and needs. I let them fail occasionally when failing was the best teacher. I was caring but boundaried, present but not drowning. It wasn't perfect. We still had difficult days. Hazel still struggled with math anxiety. Owen still forgot things. Trevor still worked too much sometimes. But it was honest. It was sustainable. It was built on mutual respect instead of endless obligation. One evening about a month after everything had changed, Hazel came into my office while I was working. Can I ask you something? Of course. I saved my work and turned my chair to face her. Are you glad this all happened? Like, do you think all the bad stuff made things better in the end? I thought about it carefully. I'm not glad you got hurt. I'm not glad things had to get so terrible before they could improve. But I am glad we all learned something true about ourselves and each other, something we needed to learn. What did you learn? That I can't pour from an empty cup. That love without boundaries isn't actually healthy love. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people experience the consequences of their choices. That protecting yourself isn't selfish. That you can love people and still require them to treat you with respect. She nodded slowly, processing. I learned that just because someone is related to me doesn't mean I have to accept their toxic behavior. And that sometimes people who love you will walk away to protect themselves. And that doesn't mean they stopped loving you. That's very wise for a 15-year-old. I learned it from watching you these past few weeks. After she left my office, I sat thinking about how we'd all been trapped in a pattern that wasn't working for anyone. How sometimes the most loving thing you can actually do is refuse to participate in your own mistreatment. How children are far more resilient than we think when we give them space to be. Vanessa eventually came around, 6 weeks after the family meeting. Called and apologized to the kids, though notably not to me. Started showing up more consistently for her weekends. Stopped sending manipulative texts, or at least the kids stopped telling me about them. We weren't friendly, but we were functionally coexisting. My husband's ex told the kids to treat me like a stranger, so I did the same to them. And in that painful, empty space that created, we all finally learned what it actually meant to build something real and sustainable, instead of something dependent on one person's endless sacrifice.